2 videos in 1 week? Who am I? Hello friends. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this super cute pastel rainbow unicorn vibed baby shower cake, or any occasion, I guess. So let's just get right into it. I'm using some 4-inch cakes today, and if you've seen my teddy bear cake, then you've seen me do this style before with the shorter and taller tier. I'm just quickly running through me icing this and covering in fondant. You've seen me do it a million times. I did use my Pro Froster for this, and if you'd like to see a more in-depth tutorial on that bad boy, I will link it down below. Not sponsored, I wish. So once the little guy was all covered and done, I did the taller tier, and I used 6 layers for this. If you want to see how to cover a taller cake in fondant and get those nice crispy edges, I will link that video down below as well. I'm going to start with the watercolor pastel effect on my taller tier. So I have some yellow, purple, blue, and pink food coloring gel I mixed with a little bit of food grade alcohol and some fluffy brushes. I started by stippling on the colors just in blobbies all over. I tried really hard not to overlap them at this point, but I did put them right up next to each other, all different sizes, different shapes. I kept the color very faint, and to do this, I only mixed a smidge, I'm talking a scotch of food coloring gel with my food grade alcohol. A little bit goes a long way. You want it to be that nice soft pastel watercolor. So if you go a little too heavy handed in the colors, I mean, if you want vibrant colors, like totally go for it. But I wanted a nice soft watered down look for this. So this is what it looked like when it was all covered. And then to help me blend the edges, I took a clean brush and dipped it in just straight up food grade alcohol, no color in there, and started to stipple very lightly over the border and just helped blow the color out, so it really softened it and got rid of any harsh edges. If I felt like it was a little bit too soft in some spots, I went back in and reapplied some color. I ended up doing this a couple of times, just letting it dry in between. Otherwise, we're just gonna drag the color and the fondant and it's gonna make the texture weird. So it took me about 3 go-overs before I was happy with the final result. I've already covered my board in some very light pink fondant, and then both of my cakes I let chill in the fridge, and I'm very gently just going to peel them off of those other cake boards and place them down. If you want to put a little 4-inch cake board underneath each one so that you're not putting bare cake onto the board, you can totally do that, but I did it this way and I had no problems. To help me get the general shape of my rainbow, I took a long piece of covered wire, this doesn't really matter what you use, and just bent out the shape that I wanted. So when I was looking for a template, I knew exactly where I wanted it to curve and how far down I wanted it to go. I added a little bit of Tylose to each of my colors, and now I'm going to start rolling out long, thick snakies of my pastel rainbow. I placed a piece of parchment paper over top of my template, and I'm going to start lining up all of my colors. If it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than your template, no big deal, as long as it matches the arch. I helped clean up the curve with my circle cutter and then just trimmed off the ends with a knife. You really want to make sure that each piece sticks together, so I'm going back in with a fine tip paintbrush and just brushing on some edible glue. I will link that recipe down below. You could also use water for this, just make sure it dries completely. Before my fondant hardens, I'm just very gently placing some wooden skewers into a couple sections. I find that if you kind of twist it as you push it in, it doesn't really misshape the fondant at all. Just be very careful with this step. And then you want to let this rainbow dry completely. I'm talking solid before you try to add it to the cake. I melted some white chocolate with some heavy cream for my drip, and I just placed that into a little baggie and going around the edge. Again, I'll link that recipe down below. And then for the other cake, the smaller one, I kept that base white and I'm going in with some pastel drip. For the clouds, I'm rolling out different size balls of white fondant and then just gluing them together, and rolling out a thin piece of white fondant. I'm draping that over top and just working quickly to tuck it into all those nooks and crannies. I use my fondant tool to coax it into any tight spots, and then I tried to push it underneath everything as much as I could to hide all those seams. And then you have yourself a little fluffy cloud. I very gently placed my rainbow, trying to center them into each cake. Because we used our template, this shouldn't be a problem. I had a little extra space at the bottom of that other one, and I don't know how that happened, but no worries, it's going to be covered with clouds. I decided to add a few of these pastel sprinkles to the shorter tier just to give it a little extra something something, and then I'm going to work on my unicorns. I made the heads and the limbs first, and you can get a pretty good idea of what I'm doing here. I used some ivory fondant for the snouts and for the hooves, and then once I had those done, I started to add them to the cake in whatever position I felt like placing them in. For the unicorn on top of the rainbow, I did add a little extra glue to the body just to make sure he didn't slip and slide anywhere, and then a couple pieces of dried spaghetti to help me keep those heads firmly in place. For the horns, I twisted some of that ivory fondant around a little piece of dried spaghetti, and then popped the ears on and added different colors for the manes and the tails of each one. I changed my mind on those colors about 8 times, so that's why they look different. And then popped on little half moons for the eyes and painted all of the horns and the hooves gold. I decided to give one of my unicorns some open eyes with some circles of black and white fondant, and then this was the final result. I love this cake. I think it turned out so cute. There's so much you could do with the different tiers. I'm sure this won't be the last time I do this style. And if you have any suggestions, please leave that in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.